Hey class, today we're going to go over the worksheet that you guys got for completion. I'm going to go over how to figure out the answers and how to draw these up. If you have any questions, please make sure that you email me or come up and ask. And as always, make sure you actually watch this video all the way through, listen to it, because it might help you with some of the questions that you had on this worksheet. So we're going to go through each one of these problems and make sure you guys have the right answer. So we're going to start with number 1 first. Remember, step 1 tells us to add up all the available electrons that we have. So if we're adding them up, nitrogen will give us 5 electrons. Chlorine will give me 7, but there's 3 chlorine, so 7 times 3 is 21, which gives me a total of 26 electrons that I'm working with. Then you have to lay out the structure. Well, nitrogen is listed first, and chlorine is a halogen, which means it's not going to go in the middle. So we're going to throw nitrogen in the middle, and we're going to put all the chlorines around it. We're going to next bond them all together. Remember, when I draw a line, that is 2 electrons each, so I've used 2, 4, 6 electrons. That leaves me 20 electrons left to use. The next step tells us to make sure the outside is happy first. So right now, this chlorine only has 2 electrons, so I need to give it 6 more to make it happy. Same with this chlorine, and also same with this chlorine. When you look, I have used a total of 18 dots, so I'm left with 2. Once you make the outside happy, next you need to make the middle happy. So I'm going to put my remaining 2 electrons on nitrogen. Once you've used them up, you have to make sure everyone has 8. So chlorine has 8, and then my nitrogen has 8, so it's good. I'm going to jump over here to number 6 because it's easier for the way that I'm recording this, but let's work on number 6. Phosphorus is in group 5, so it's also going to give 5 electrons. Iodine is in group 7, and there's 3 of them, so it's going to give a total of 21, 7 times 3, which tells me that I'm working with 26 electrons. Iodine is a halogen, so it's not going to go in the middle, so that's going to be our first element, which is phosphorus, and then we're going to put iodine around it. Next, we're going to bond these all and realize that we're using 6 electrons to make those bonds, which gives me 20. Next up is you have to make the outside happy first. So note that iodine's not happy because it only has 2 electrons. So I'm going to put 6 more dots around it to make 8. That uses 18, and that leaves me 2. Once I make the outside happy, I put the remaining dots on the middle, which is phosphorus. Then you make sure everybody's happy, and it is. You're going to notice that 1 and 2 look really similar, and it's because it involves a group 5 metal and then 3 halogens, or group 5 nonmetal and 3 halogens. Okay. Let's go down to number 2 and number 7. So if we're focusing on number 2, here I have a carbon, which donates 4. Here I have 2 chlorine, so that gives me 14, plus 2 fluorine, which also gives me another 14, which gives me a total of 28. And this gives me a total of 32 that I am working with. So then what I need to do is I need to figure out who's going to go in the middle. Remember, if you're ever given carbon, it's always going to go in the middle. And then you're going to put the other ones around it. Now, it doesn't really matter how the other ones go around it, as long as they're there somewhere. So I'm going to draw my bonds to each of those 4, and that allows me to use 8 electrons. So you make sure you're subtracting properly. 32 minus 8 gives me 24 electrons left to use. Then with these 24, I need to make my outside happy. Right now, each one only has 2, but it needs 8, so I'm going to give each one 6. You're going to note that when I draw these on, that takes over the remaining 24 electrons I have left to use. So I'm left with 0, check to make sure everybody's happy, and you're going to see everybody is, including my carbon in the middle. Going over to number 7, let's add up what we're allowed to use. Here, carbon can give 4, oxygen can donate 6, and fluorine, there's 2 of them, so 2 times 7 is 14. We can add that up. 14 plus 6 plus 4 gives me a total of 24 that I'm allowed to work with. Then you have to figure out who's in the middle. Again, if you're given carbon, carbon's always in the middle. I'm going to put oxygen and then fluorine on either side. Remember, we did talk about it loves to be symmetrical, so this is just one way that we can do it. Okay, I need to bond them all to carbon in the middle, so there's 2, 4, 6 electrons that we used, which gives me 18 to work with. And then we got to make our outside happy first. So here I need 6 more dots around fluorine, 6 more around oxygen, and 6 more around fluorine. And that uses the remaining 18 of my electrons. Now, most of you guys might be like, I'm done because I've used all my electrons, but the last step says make sure everybody's happy. If you look on here, you're going to note that one element's not happy, and that's carbon. Carbon has 2, 4, 6 electrons. But I don't have any more electrons to plant, so this is when you will make a double bond or a triple bond if you need it. So who do I steal electrons from? One thing to note is that halogens and hydrogen will not make a double bond. So I can't take from either one of these fluorine. What I have to do is take from this oxygen. So I'm actually going to erase these pair of electrons up here on oxygen, and I'm going to use them to make a double bond. Note now carbon's happy and oxygen is still happy. Next, let's go through 3 and 8. So as we go through 3, remember carbon can donate 4, fluorine can give 7, but there's 2 of them, so 7 times 2 is 14. And then here I have 2 hydrogens, so 1 times 2 gives me 2. And if we add those all up, 14 plus 4 plus 2, I'm working with a total of 20 electrons. What we're going to do now is we're going to make carbon in the middle. Carbon's always our middleman. And then, like I said, I don't care how these elements go around it as long as they do. So here I'm going to put them around. That tells me that I have used 8 electrons, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2 for each bond, which gives me 12 electrons left. Now you have to make the outside happy. Remember, hydrogen can only have 2 electrons, so these hydrogen right here are already happy. I'm going to replace the remaining 12 around my fluorine to make them happy. That brings me down to 0. Next, check to make sure everybody has a complete octet, and they do. For number 8, here I have oxygen. Oxygen has 6 valence electrons times 2, which means I'm working with a total of 12 electrons. Note that I don't have more than 3 atoms, so I don't have a middle atom. I just have 2 oxygen bonded to each other. That bond uses up 2 electrons, so now I have 10 left. So I'm going to plant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you have to make sure everybody's happy. Note that the oxygen on the left is happy because it has 8 around it, but the oxygen on the right doesn't. So since I've used up all my electrons, this is where I can make a double bond. So I'm going to steal these electrons to make it symmetrical and have that be one of my double bonds. Note here, everybody's happy now. Everyone has 8, so that works out. For 4 and 9, let's walk through these two. Here, carbon gives 4, hydrogen gives 1 each, but there's 2 of them, and this one gives 6, so I'm working with 12 electrons. Again, we're going to stick carbon in the middle. I'm going to put oxygen up here and hydrogen on either side. Note that this uses 6 electrons, so I have 6 left. we're going to make our outside happy first, which is this oxygen. So I'm going to place those 6 electrons around oxygen. Now I have no electrons. We have to make sure everybody's happy. Note the only element not happy is this carbon. So in order to make this carbon happy, we need to make a double bond. So I'm going to steal these 2 electrons to make a double bond right here. Moving on to HF, hydrogen gives 1, fluorine gives 7, which gives me 8 electrons. I'm going to bond hydrogen and fluorine together, and that bond uses 2 electrons, which gives me 6. Now remember, hydrogen's happy with 2, so I'm going to put those remaining 6 on fluorine, and note everybody is happy. So we're good to go. Now let's focus on our last 2 problems. Number 5, HCN. Here, hydrogen gives 1, carbon gives 4, and nitrogen gives 5, for a total of 10 electrons I'm allowed to use. Now note that even though hydrogen is listed first, it does not like to be in the middle. We are given carbon, so carbon's going to always be in that middle. So we're going to put carbon in the middle. Note with these 2 bonds, I have used 4 electrons, so now I have 6 left to plant. We need to make the outside happy first, so hydrogen's already happy with 2. I'm going to put them around nitrogen. Note that I have no more electrons to use, but carbon's not happy. Carbon has 2 4 electrons, so this is again when you make your double or triple bonds. So I'm going to take these electrons and make a double bond. Then check to make sure everybody's happy. Notice carbon's still not happy. It has 6, but it needs 8 electrons. So this is how you know you're going to make a triple bond, because I still need it to make happy. Now, if you make a triple bond, note carbon has 8, nitrogen has 8, and hydrogen's okay with 2. Okay. Last structure, carbon gives 4, hydrogen gives 1 each, but there's 3 of them, and iodine can give 7. So it gives me a total of 14 electrons to work with. Again, like always, we're going to always put carbon in the middle, and we're going to put all the other elements around it. Here with my bonds, I've made 2, 4, 6, 8 bonds, which gives me 6 electrons left over. I have to make my outside happy first, so the only outside one not happy is my iodine. So I'm going to put 6 dots around my iodine, which takes up my remaining 6 electrons. Now that I've used them all, make sure everybody's happy, and everybody is. So this is the correct structure. Okay. If you have any questions of why these are the correct structures, please make sure that you email me. And otherwise I hope you guys have a great day.